Hello and welcome to Mr. C History, and most importantly, Happy New Year. Now today is going to be a bit of a random one. Over the past year, I'm going to show you a few clips that didn't quite either make it to a cut of a video, or there's also a few videos we're going to see in a minute, which I wanted to make a wider video about them all, but I didn't quite work out, and so they're sort of standalone. But actually, I think they're interesting enough for them to be included here. So they're sort of random picks from my year in history. As always, thank you ever so much for watching and for those who have subscribed, and I'll see you on the next one throughout the year. Please enjoy. I am at St Mary's Church in Eastwell in Kent, and on this grave here it says reported to be the tomb of Richard Plantagenet, December 1550. This is the grave of the last known Plantagenet. Who were the Plantagenets? Well, they were the royal house from the 1150s right up to the 1480s. King John started with Henry II, right up to Richard III, who lost to Henry Tudor at the Battle of Bosworth Field and started the Tudor dynasty. So by 1550, who is this? Well, this is allegedly Richard of Eastwell, who was the son of Richard III and an unknown woman, and was the last remaining member of this household, allegedly. Now we say allegedly because little is known about it. Now there's either two reasons for this. One, it's all made up, and this bloke just at the end of his life said, yes, I am Richard III's son. The other is it would have been suppressed by Henry Tudor, who had just beaten Richard III in the Battle of Bosworth Field. He doesn't want any of his children running around knowing willy-nilly, so it probably would have been suppressed, all of that. Ultimately, we don't know whether it was true or not. There is some story about Richard of Eastwell being sent off to Battle of Bosworth Field and meeting his father and fighting and all that. Again, little evidence of that is known. But it's interesting, could this be the last link to the Plantagenets? But Julius Caesar and Hengist and Horsa are not the only significant people to land here at Pegwell Bay. Also St Augustine. He arrived here in 597 AD to spread the message of Christianity. So also the story of Britain and Christianity starts here at Pegwell Bay. And that's not the only interesting thing about Pegwell Bay. If you go down to the foreshore there, you'll see a large concrete block that was built in 1969, and throughout the 1970s and 1980s, that was the world's first and probably only major international hoverport for the hovercraft that used to go along to France. This was a trip to Mortlake, to the tomb of the explorer Richard Burton. He was an interesting fellow in the 1850s, famously went around Africa, but of course famously he was the first non-Muslim to visit Mecca. He disguised himself. Anyway, he's buried in this rather amazing tomb in the Bedouin tent. He was very keen on the Bedouins with these interesting symbols. You can enter it through a ladder at the back, and he's buried next to his wife with all these other odd symbols, which in the 1850s was rather controversial. But he's a rather interesting figure, and it's an interesting place to go and visit. This, of course, is Westminster Abbey, but I'm not here specifically for the Abbey. I'm actually here for the Great West Door, more specifically to the statues that are above the Great West Door, which were unveiled in 1998. They are statues of 20th century martyrs, but I'm actually interested in one particular one. One in particular is the one 3 in from the right as you look at it, Esther John. Esther John was born Kamarsia in 1929 in the Punjab province, which is actually nowadays in modern-day Pakistan. Of course, in 1929, it was part of British India. She was born into a Muslim family, but she attended a Christian school, indeed read the Bible, and converted to Christianity. This led to actually estrangement from her family, from her local village, from her local community, and she was pushed out. She then embarked on a life as a teacher and as a nurse, particularly to vulnerable communities, women and children in the Punjab region. But her life struck tragedy in 1960, where she was strangled in her bed. She was killed, presumably because of her Christian faith. She was killed by somebody who disagreed by her Christian faith. I say presumably because we have no idea who killed her. No culprit has ever come forward or been punished for it. So she is an excellent example of a South Asian woman who has become a Christian martyr, and she's commemorated here at Westminster Abbey. This is Fitzroy Crescent in Chiswick in West London, and here is a very small but nicely appointed memorial to the first V2 attack on London, which took place on September the 8th, 1944. Now it's interesting, you can see here there's a bit of a gap now from where the bomb hit, which is an electricity substation now. But this was a very significant event because this was the first time this new form of weapon, the V2, hit London. Now obviously London during the Second World War had faced a lot of bombing from aerial bombardment, from planes flying over and dropping. And there was the V1 rocket and the famous doodlebugs that were sent over. Those made noise. They're often known as buzzing weapons. The V2 was a new marked change. It was the world's first ballistic ground missile. It was sent over from northern France and Netherlands. In particular, this one actually came from the Netherlands, and they would be sent over from those bases in occupied Nazi Europe and sent over to Britain. The V of V2 stands for Vergeltenswaffe, which means vengeance, and these things were terrifying. They could go at an incredibly high altitude and very, very high speeds, but crucially they were silent. They couldn't be detected, they couldn't be intercepted. Suddenly, wham, straight into a place like this, total destruction. So yes, they destroyed a lot, and in the end 2,500 people in London lost their lives to V2 rockets, but the psychological impact was huge. You were always at risk, suddenly obliterated without really knowing. It was an unbelievable turning point. It's interesting, it happens after D-Day. This is the 8th of September 1944. So as the Allies are going through Nazi Germany, Nazi-occupied Europe, the Nazis are trying to fight back. War is escalating, and it's coming to here to Chiswick.